And to let everyone know, the YouTube live has started. So.
Pam, have you heard anything from Elaine or?
Yeah, hold on. She's
okay, good.
logging on now.
My bad. I had it on 6:30, not 6:15.
Well, we try to mix it up every once in a while. Okay, I think we've got everybody. With that, I'd like to call to order the work session, Belleville City Council for Monday, February the 8th. Pam, I'm going to call the roll, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance when the main meeting starts.
What's that? Sorry. Call the roll.
Yes, please.
Mr. Hoke.
Off to a great start.
I'm present. Sorry, I've got 3 screens and I was trying to find my mouse.
Mr. Havens.
Here.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen. You're muted.
Still? I'm here.
Now you're good.
All right.
Mr. Greenwood.
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Here. And just a real quick tip for those who don't know, if you want just a quick unmute, hold your space bar down.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Edwards.
Here.
Mayor Schweller.
Here. As you know, tonight is the, I guess, completion of our 2021 budget with regards to capital expenditures. And I see we've got Ryan here. We've got the police chief and the fire chief. So I think we're going to be talking about spending money that's going to probably benefit them. But in any event, Melissa, if you want to go ahead and get us started and kick it off, we can start talking about capital.
Okay, so the reason why there's so many of my square here is that Pam needs one for the YouTube live, and then I'm also logged in so I can screen share. So I'm going to do that now to share the document that is in the packet. So my camera is here, my computer is here. So forgive me for this oddity that we have going on here. So I left this exactly as it was the last time that we met. So I will start with that. We have our fire chief, police chief, and service director all here. So what I would really like to do is, obviously the focus is really 2021, just so that we can go ahead and settle up what it is that we would like to accomplish this year and those amounts. And I can bring that for a supplemental appropriation at an upcoming meeting, hopefully the next meeting. And then we can get some of these projects in the works. So that's kind of the goal. I know that there are 4 other years on here. So there are some future placeholders for some items. So I know that there are some larger things on here as well. I just want to make sure that the discussion is really focused on 2021 and some of those future items that we have placeholders for. We can discuss those, but I really want to try to get 2021 settled this evening. So hopefully nobody has any objections to that. And I will go ahead and get started. So in 2021, I have this separated out into, there are 3 different funds that we use, okay? I color code everything just because it's easier for my brain to operate that way. So everything that you guys see from me is color coded. You guys should be used to it by now. So we have our street fund, which we can take some of our improvements out of. We have our capital improvement fund, which we take quite a bit of our items out of. And then lastly, we have the water fund, which we take some of the items from as well. So we have 3 funds in which we draw from. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to start with streets. We do not have anything marked for 2021, but last year, what we did with the street repair is we had always had $150,000 allocated out of the capital improvement fund. And with the increase in gas taxes, which kind of fluctuated, as we all know, last year with the pandemic, we had planned, and we did allocate an extra $50,000 from our streets fund to pay for our for some additional paving. So that is something that I want for council to consider tonight. And I know that Ryan has a preliminary estimate, which was also in the packet, of the streets that he wishes to pave and some estimates for that. So we can kind of talk about the paving. Maybe we should just go ahead and do that first and get that out of the way, because we always pave. It's just a matter of how much and the actual streets that we are going to pave. So if I rotate this, it rotates everything. So just bear with me here. So these are the streets that Ryan has selected for paving. And as you see, everything with a contingency is $189,000 basically. So Ryan, I don't know if you want to speak to any of the selections this year, just to kind of frame it up for everybody to kind of know what you were thinking and where we are with this.
Yeah, so, and first off, this estimate is based off of last year's high estimate. So it doesn't go out to bid until April or May, and we don't really know a total, but I think we're going to be under budget again as we were last year. So the way we pick these, we kind of have a 3-year map of, what to expect. And honestly, sometimes it changes just because the road may deteriorate, sooner than we think. And there's some roads that we can push off later. But I came up with a list, and then I had Jerry, our foreman, come up with a list. And every single one of these were on both of our lists. So I think, I think it's a pretty good, what needs to happen next is what this list is.
So I think that what I would like for council to discuss and decide is, do we want to continue with the increased allocation for our paving for this year in hopes that the additional gas tax really does come to fruition? It really did start to take a positive turn with obviously more people driving and everything. So we should realize much more of the gas taxes than what we did last year. But we still came out ahead last year, even though we took the hit. So I would just really like for council maybe to discuss the paving and how much we want to spend on the paving, and make that decision probably first.
Well, so I'm personally fine if we keep it at the 150 range, and I know this year we're looking at 190. But hopefully that's a high-end estimate, and I think let's just watch the gas tax come in, and we don't need to officially submit until, Ryan, you said in April or May?
Well, that's when the bid comes in. They're going to be asking for these numbers probably later in March.
Okay.
But it goes out to Greene County, goes out to bid. They get I think really only 2 vendors bid against each other, and then of course the better dollar gets it. And even if we do decide to go less, I can always, before they come, all I have to do is cancel a street or something like that. It's really not critical, or I can add for that matter. It's really not critical. So they're pretty lenient either way if the initial list doesn't happen.
Okay, given that explanation, I'm fine with what we have out there right now.
I agree with you, Mike.
Me
And
too.
I've seen so many cities, we've seen a lot of our neighbors that have had problems with roads when the maintenance just kind of catches up with them. And we've had a systematic process in place for a number of years. And I think it works for us.
And what we can do is once this gets closer, I can circle back around with where our revenues are for the months to date, and we can go from there as well. So we can just continue to keep an eye on revenues related to the gas tax and see how that ends up falling. So are we okay on streets then?
Yes.
I just had a quick question. How long have we been at $150,000?
I'm not sure. Somebody,
I can tell you it's probably been, I mean, I don't have that exact number, but it used to be 100,000 and then it went to 150,000 probably 8 or 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't gone up. That's pretty impressive.
okay, so we'll keep an eye.
Our guys take really good care of the streets. They fix spots when they show up rather than waiting till later.
Okay, so if we're okay with paving, we'll move on because part of that could get allocated from streets. So the capital improvement fund is separated by department. And what we did was we transferred $350,000 into this fund at the beginning of the year to offset the cost of some of these projects, which is something that we do every year. So we are on an actual solid rotation schedule of workstations, which is great. 2021 is a really light year for that. As you can tell, we've been doing it, let's see, we started 18, 19, 20. So yeah, this is our 4th year. So as you can see, it should look like this. So 15,000 was the first year, and then 12,000, 15,000, 7,000. So it's in a rotation now that's a little bit more manageable. So we have $7,000 allocated for some workstation upgrades. And that's the only item out of administration for 2021. Does anybody have any kind of question or issue with any of that?
Melissa, is this the completion of all of our workstation upgrades? Or we still have a few more we're going to look at, or?
This is the final year of upgrades. So this will be the last of them, and it's not that many of them. And then everything will have been replaced, and now we'll be on a 4-year cycle. So that's great.
Good, thanks.
So service, we already talked about paving. Ryan has a culvert relining for Crescent Court in 2020. We also had earmarked money every year for culvert relining. We had done, I think was it Beechwood, Ryan, this year? We had done Beechwood and sent council the pictures of what the before and after looked like of that. So Crescent Court was something that we were hoping that we were going to try to get it done at the same time as Beechwood last year, because they were going to be able to give us a really good price on it. But when North Bellevue collapsed, we just totally had to pivot on that because that was such an unknown. So we have a culvert relining that we would like to complete. And I'm just going to go ahead and just touch on these other 2 things. I have them highlighted because they're kind of up in the air right now. I had these 2 items added in and money earmarked for the next couple years to do these things in phases. Community Affairs met, and we talked about putting out an RFP for a kind of a streetscape design proposal for a firm to be able to come in and look at street lighting and some other upgrades to streetscapes into a cohesive plan. So the plan is to go ahead and put out the RFP, which the RFP is written. It's going through a couple of small revisions, and then we would be putting that RFP out. So downtown street lighting this year is likely not going to be something that we earmark. The cohesive plan with a phased approach in terms of cost is kind of where we're going with this. So this year, I don't think that we really need that item, but it was in there when this was first presented. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about it. And then the crosswalk installations, I do think that we should leave money earmarked for that. The service committee has not yet gotten together on this. We've had some emails back and forth, and I think that we just really need to carve out a time to just sit down and meet. The crosswalk installations was one of the items that the service committee is considering currently. So I feel like we should leave that money there as a placeholder, but that could change based on the information that we get back after our service committee meeting and some other things that would happen after that. So thoughts on the culvert relining and the downtown streetlight crosswalk situation that I just went over.
Up. There she is.
Makes sense to me because, well, of course, I'm on the community affairs, so we discussed this at that point. And it makes sense to me to leave the crosswalk installation in for sure.
I agree.
Melissa, what was the timeline for that RFP that we were talking about as far as getting an answer back from them?
Well, I need to get it back from legal. So community affairs asked for our municipal attorney to look at it, and I was hoping to have it back last week, and I haven't received it back yet. So it would take a month.
That's not what I meant. I meant the timeline for them to actually do the work and lay out a streetscape for us.
6 months.
6 months from the time that we award it.
Correct.
Okay, so if we don't award it until April, pretty much the year's already gone to really execute anything on the downtown street lighting project. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Correct.
Would it be nice to kind of have some money set aside to be able to hit go in October, November? Or do you think just line it up for 2022?
What we would do is once the plan is done, that would obviously be presented to council. And then at that time, if anybody wants to propose earmarking and beginning sooner, such as November timeframe, I can come back with a supplemental appropriation and we can do it at that time. So just because we don't put it in right now doesn't mean that we wouldn't have opportunity to do that if that's what council would like to do after we receive back the plan.
Okay. I couldn't remember if it was going to take them like 2 months or 6 months. So that's what I was asking. I follow you.
Is everybody, so I will strike the $65,000 mark or placeholder for downtown street lighting project. Does anybody else have any other issue? That leaves the culvert relining and the crosswalk installations as a placeholder.
Sounds good to me.
Melissa, I was going to ask part of this design downtown. I think me and you talked a little bit about maybe some one-way streets or something. Did they look at that kind of thing?
I mean, they absolutely could. I mean, I can definitely make that part of it. So there will be meetings with city staff and others to kind of talk about, you know, what it is we're looking for. Some of that is very clearly written into the RFP, but I do think that is a good point, Forrest, about possible vehicular traffic improvements for pedestrian safety. That's easy enough to incorporate. If it's not already specifically in there like that, I can't remember because it's been a couple of days since I've looked at it.
Yeah, while we're doing this, I mean, whatever people feel there might be safety issues, we discussed 1 or 2 places.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well just fix it and might even make it a little easier to get funding if it's safety issues.
Yes, I'll make a note of that, Forrest, and I'll go back and I'll revisit the RFP. Does anybody else have any issues with any of the other items?
I just had a question. If the contract were awarded in late 2021, would it be possible to allocate $130K in 22 or would it be pushed out a year in total?
So it will take them 6 months to do the plan. So we would put it out for proposals for a month. Then we would do it, we would award a contract, and then it would take them 6 months to complete the plan. So that's putting us with a completed plan towards the end of the year. And what I'd asked is for a 3-year phased approach for finances,
Okay.
for budgeting. So
But I guess conceivably we could do, I think what TJ is saying, could we do 65 and then another 65 in 2021 or 2022? So it'd be
yeah, there's nothing to
130.
say we couldn't do that. Once we look at it and we see, you know, kind of what's in front of us, we'll have a much better idea of what we're biting off and what we're able to bite off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you saying TJ leave the 65 in possibly? So we're,
No, I didn't want to see it for the 4-year calendar to get shoved out entirely. I didn't know if we could still, you know, compress it or finish the project by 2024.
and
That's all I'm asking.
Melissa, are we on to the other capital equipment items? Or are we still on the service ones?
We're just on service right now. We're going to move to police here in just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you know, we can move the money around on service as we need to once this plan gets moving. If we like it and we want to go on it, we'll just make some appropriations and move some money around.
okay.
I'm fine with that. I'd like to get the crosswalks done. The other one's a bigger project, but let's just wait and see how the numbers come in, what the plan looks like. We done with service?
All right, I'm
Okay,
going to
police.
So like I said, I really want to get through 2021 to make sure that we don't get, you know, sidetracked with any of the future projects. Let's get through 2021 and then we can go back and we can look at some of these future projections and items. Okay, so police, I will let Chief talk to this because he knows the specifics in terms of the cruiser rotation and the last time that they got one and the way that it's kind of been shuffled around. So the police department is requesting 2 cruisers. And Chief, do you want to go ahead and touch on that since we're here right now, how that has worked previously?
Sure. First of all, the cruisers that we have worked marvelously for us. They've given us everything that we thought they would, the space, the durability, the practicality of them. If you recall, I came to council and said that we needed these so we didn't use our own trucks to get to call. So it's worked great. And we were due to replace these 2 vehicles that we have scheduled for this year, last year, and they got pushed back. If you remember, the city manager at the time, Mark Schlagheck, had added a year out to the cruisers. And that's worked fine for these. It's worked out pretty good. But they are getting long in the tooth, and we're starting to see some minor issues with some of them coming up. Nothing like the Chargers, but they're ready to get replaced. So the money allocated there is accurate accounting of what they will cost, within a couple thousand, I believe. And then the equipment for the cruisers, there's some things that we can take out of the car and put back into the new ones, and there's some things that we cannot. They modify the cruiser just a little bit, so some things won't fit back into the new car. So that's why you have the money there for the equipment and the cruisers.
So does anybody have any questions or comments about the police department and cruisers for 2021?
Chief, these are all pursuant to the state contract, correct, as far as the purchase?
Yes, sir.
State bid? Okay.
Yes.
How many miles you end up getting on those?
Well, they're all pretty close. They're all tipping over about, these 2 cruisers are tipping up over 100,000 now. But they're holding up pretty well for that kind of mileage. But again, we don't run these cruisers real hard, not like in some other places or jurisdictions, but I think we're getting a lot of good use for the cruisers. So I think a lot of value for the dollar in the cruisers for sure.
What year are they?
15, I think. 2015.
Okay.
I would
We
say
always,
that 100,000 miles I would say would likely be somewhat hard miles because they're all short distance, likely mostly short distance and lower speeds, which is tough on a car.
Yes. But at the same time, not high speed or hard braking all the time, but braking often, you might say, yes.
Plus a lot of idle time in there too.
Yes, and those count towards the engine hours. Sometimes they don't look at the mileage necessarily, but the hours on the engine running, so that counts towards it.
Yeah, okay.
Chief, how does that compare to maybe some of the other police offices around the area as far as how long they keep their cruisers in service, years and miles wise?
Yeah, I think typically when you start getting around 90 to 100,000 miles, they are ready to go. This is the first generation. These are the first two cruisers that we bought. And then we're going to have to replace since I've been here. So these are the first generation of cars that have had to be replaced. But typically I can only speak to where I came from at Xenia, and they had to be replaced a little sooner. I'd say probably 4-year rotation there, just because they're just driven differently. But I think we are being, good stewards of the cruisers. We take care of them. They do go to Muffler Brothers to get fixes for things, and they treat us really good, and they take care of things, which is, I think, extended the life of the vehicles.
When I assume these would go out to auction,
The new ones,
the old ones would go to
I
auction.
think we put those on Gov Deals, is what we've done in the past.
And where does that money go when we get it in return for the auction? Does it come back to the general fund or police fund?
Yes, general fund typically. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I'm not 100% sure. We might. It either goes to the general fund or police. I can't remember which. Because the money is originally sourced from the general fund. So I'd have to look up to see what we've done in the past.
And my only additional comment here is this 118,000 for capital for police is over and above the other was it 150,000 that we pulled out of the general fund for police. Do I recall that correctly?
The transfer,
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the budget before I answer that. Yes, 150,000 this year.
Okay, so we're at 268,000 coming out of the general fund to the police with the capital equipment. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and that's really where I'm coming from, is that maybe we're getting to the point where we need a police levy. I understand we need them and we got to move forward. So
Let's talk about that later, shall we, please?
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with cruisers for the year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The other items are minimal and are normally part of the purchases on an annual basis. Any specific questions related to what exactly that goes towards specifically Doug can, or I'm sorry, Chief can explain any of that, but they're pretty small purchases. So does anybody have any questions about some of those smaller items? Because those are more geared towards the chief, like I said. So
I'm fine with them, Melissa.
we ready to move on from police?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, fire has a whopping $5,500, so this isn't going to be a very long conversation. They've got minimal items, kind of like police, portable mobile radios, very small amount, $3,000, and furniture and fixes $2,500. So there are some larger placeholder items, which we can circle back around to absolutely, but just in the essence of time right now to get through 2021, does anybody have any issue with what's marked for 2021?
I'm good with that, but I have a really quick question for Chief. Do you still burn flags?
We collect flags, and the Boy Scouts actually do the burnings of them. So if you have extras, please drop them by the station. We'll take care of them.
Okay, I've got one that's in shreds.
All right.
Okay, and last but not least, we have water. There's really one large item, which is the Bledsoe Drive water tower exterior painting. And I'll let any questions directly related to that go to Ryan. And we've got two smaller things. We've got well-related projects for $10,000. And then we also have a meter reading software upgrade. The meter reading software that we use now, I think it's been not serviced for a couple of years. It still worked fine, but we feel like we're kind of on borrowed time with that. So we would like to go ahead and make the move before we've got a real issue on our hands. So that's the three items from water. So I will let Ryan field any questions related to those things.
How does that tower painting compare to the last tower that was painted?
Okay, so the last tower that was painted was up at the high school. It's really the same process. This one's just a bigger tower. This will make 15 years since it was painted last, and they try to get you to paint them every 10 years, and it's just not needed, because what you have to consider is they do an adhesion test. So they could scuff and paint over top of what's on there versus bead blasting the whole exterior, which costs a lot more. So they tested that last year and said it still had a good adhesion coefficient or some wording. But if the last time it was painted, it was 21 years, and it did have to be bead blasted. So I'm not sure of the cost of that. That was back in 2006. But this is the 15-year timeline, and I just want to kind of get ahead of it before we need to spend more money doing it a different way.
And Ryan, it's only needed to paint the exterior. I think last time we painted on Upper Bellbrook, I think it was inside and outside, but this is just going to be the exterior for Bledsoe.
This includes inside repairs, so it will be drained. They will check the welds on the inside and repair as necessary. It's not a full. Okay, they'll paint inside the bowl, but not inside the structure itself. It's kind of worded differently, but inside the bowl they're going to paint.
Okay.
And then they're going to check every weld and spot repair it as needed.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, how much more was it to do the bead blasting?
I don't have that number. I could probably get that number. This is just kind of an estimate from Dixon Engineering Company that they specialize in water tanks, and they would be on site from start to finish, making sure it's done. They check the millage of every coat. They constantly inspect. But as far as that number, back in 06 when it was done before, I don't have those numbers.
They give us any guarantee that their adhesion tests results will last 15 years without doing bead blasting?
Well, they say so they tested it last year, and they say, like I said, they want to paint it every 10 years or want us to have it painted. Of course, they're engineers and they make money from it, but we know that, last year would have been the 14th year and the adhesion test was still good. So assuming, and that was in October. So assuming that it's still, I'm assuming that it's still good. He didn't have a worry that, man, you got to do it now. You can't wait another year. He didn't have any kind of anything about that. So,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Brian, are we going to paint any fancy paintings on these towers?
That's up to you guys if you want to spend more money.
Profile of forest.
I would just think to put Bellbrook on it, or the new Bellbrook logo, but that's included. If you put a golden eagle like up there, I know that costs more money. I'm not sure the cost on that, but this includes that logo, our Bellbrook logo.
We need Bellbrook on it for the private pilots who fly by sight.
Any more questions on the water fund? Hearing none, I think we're good.
Okay, so we will go ahead and go with all capital improvements listed with the exception of the downtown street lighting project, which was earmarked. So I would like to bring a supplemental appropriation to the next meeting to be able to at least appropriate the funds so that some of these projects can go ahead and get started. Okay, so I will draw attention. We've got, it looks like, just a few more minutes. I will go ahead and draw attention to some of the bigger items that are pushed out into the future years. If we take a look at service first, we have the Franklin Street pedestrian improvements, which is our share of the MVRPC grant. That might come out of 2022. It might come out of 2023, depending on the project and where it actually ends up landing. So we do have that expense coming up. The rest of this is all very routine, earmarked money every year for the most part. We do have a street sweeper, which part of that would come from service and part of it would come from, it would come from water, and we don't have the other half of it in here. So I totally missed that. So we put it in service. I didn't put it in water. So half of it would come from water, half of it would come from streets, and that is earmarked for 2023 at this point. The other, let's see, moving on to police, we would have 2 more cruisers in 2023, along with the equipment for those. And then when we come down to fire, these are some larger ticket items coming. So we have 2 medics in the near future. We have a medic in 2022 and a medic in 2024. We also have self-loading cots in 2022 as well. And then cardiac monitors in 2023. And then we have the first appearance of a ladder/engine out in 2024, which obviously is a very large ticket item and is going to require quite a bit of discussion, which I think should probably be reserved for a future meeting. And then let's see. We have, out of the water fund, we have backhoe replacement, which I feel like the other half of that up in streets was not in there, so I apologize for that. And then we have a pickup truck in 2025 and then a dump in 2025 as well, which is shared. So I need to fix some of those shares. So we do have a couple of things that are a little bit larger that are pushed out into the future that we will need to keep an eye on. So in the essence of time, with about, my watch says 4 minutes, I'm not sure what the official time is. How would council like to handle the future capital discussions, since we ran a little bit short in 2020? Well, I guess, 2020 at this point. in the budget discussions. Do we want to reserve an hour as a separate work session for capital? Or is there a different way that you would like to handle that in the future, just so that we can plan for later this year when we will be doing this all over again?
Melissa, I would think maybe we set aside a separate hour for just capital.
Okay.
It seems like we got some big ticket items coming up, but they're going to warrant some probably additional conversation.
I would agree.
Okay.
Me
So
too.
that, I'm sorry, Elaine.
Just said me too. Two
Okay, so we
separate
will,
sessions.
we will start that then towards the end of the year. We'll do this all over again, and we will start just a meeting earlier and kind of shift the schedule. So yeah, really the bigger discussion is just going to be some of the fire items that are coming up. So I thank everybody for the discussion and supporting of all of the projects. And I thank all of the department heads for taking time out of their evening to be able to answer the questions that I'm not able to, because I'm not an expert in all, especially when it comes to some of this technical stuff. So thank you to everybody for that. And we'll bring this to the next meeting with a supplemental appropriation.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. And thanks again, Chiefs, and thanks, Ryan. And I know we'll hear more from Ryan in a few minutes.
Thanks, Mayor.
Got just a couple of minutes, or we'll take a real quick break where we'll get back at 7 p.m. Okay, if everybody's ready, I show it's about 7 o'clock. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting at Bellbrook City Council. Today is Monday, February the 8th, 2021. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Pam, if you could call the roll.
Mr. Hoke,
Here.
Mr. Havens,
Here.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen,
Here.
Mr. Greenwood,
Here,
Mrs. Middlestetter,
Here,
Mr. Edwards,
Here.
Mayor Schweller.
Here. Thanks, Pam. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of minutes. We have minutes from the work session of January 18th, as well as the regular meeting on January the 25th of 2021. First, let's look to the minutes of the work session of January the 18th. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
I do, Mayor.
Proceed.
So, got about, I think about 10 to 12 of them here. I'll just start with introduction, line 4 and 5. The minutes say, and I quote, "The agenda was designed to align with council committees. This will allow some oversight of individual goals and give Mrs. Dodd a go-to group of people when questions arise or decisions are needed." I emphasize the word decisions there. The record states the committees will work with Melissa when decisions are needed. It puts into a record that the mayor is calling for decisions to be made without the majority of council, which I don't believe is legal. And if you watch the video, starting at minute 4, going to about 4:20, you don't say that. You don't use the word decisions. And I don't think that we should have that in our record.
I'll go back and look at it. I'll ask Pam do the same. So your issue is to strike the word decisions?
Actually, just put the words that were said rather than the words that were written. I don't know where those words came from, but that's not what you
Okay.
said.
Okay, Pam, if we can go back and double check that one and make sure we have it accurate. Everybody in council does the same. The YouTube video's out there.
The second one I've got is from minutes 5 minutes and 45 seconds to 8 minutes and 55 seconds. The mayor gives an overview of who, why, how the initial list of goals were derived, and an overview of each goal category and subcategories, and then asks for any changes or corrections. I understand that we switched from chronological minutes as notes, but I believe the mayor's words and points here should not be omitted from the record. And as I believe they are important to the entire context of the meeting. The mayor's comments here are certainly as important as the other members' comments on each topic, and I couldn't find them. That makes sense?
Ernie, can
Yeah.
you tell me again the time?
5 minutes, 45 seconds to 8 minutes, 55 seconds.
Thank you.
Go back. We'll go back and look at them, see once.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
So 1C, bear with me a second. Yeah. 1C, second paragraph, Mr. Edwards responded that this is a financial issue that affects businesses of which Mr. Havens has stated he wants to help. And if you go to minute 54 and 10 seconds, Mr. Edwards actually said that I, Mr. Havens, talked about wanting to attract businesses. And to me, there's a interesting distinction there. I never said that I wanted to help businesses or I wanted the city to help businesses in that regard. but wanted to make those changes to attract businesses. May seem subtle to some, but it's not something I want to have on record of me saying. In that same kind of context, line 8, prior to my comment, I would ask that we insert Elaine's comment to make my comments have context. Elaine said at 55 minutes, one of the things that was really big problem with the sidewalk repair is people can't get concrete contractors to do small projects. They won't come out for small project. So we need to look at how we can facilitate getting those things fixed and help people find resources, because the market doesn't respond to small little fix-it projects. And then after that, I said, well, I'd be happy to help them. And I think Pam, you also said that. Both of those comments are there, but there's, as you read through them, no one would really understand why we're making those comments if we didn't have Elaine's comment.
Okay.
Section 2A, financial, paragraph 1, line 10. I asked that my entire comment is inserted, again, to help with context of what both TJ and I was saying. And you can check the actual wording at 1 hour, 23 minutes and 30 seconds. But I essentially said that Mr. Havens agreed and warned of having an industrial park in our downtown if we don't grab the reins.
All right.
So line 1C, I asked to add line 1D, not line 1E. And it came in as line E. If we go back to 5B, reestablish quarterly community meetings. The last line of the minutes reads that Mr. Havens opined that he believes it should be a priority because he feels council should be doing better. And at minute 32:20, I said, I believe we can do it a lot better if council supported it. And that comment was directed at council, not at our city employees. Future levy projections, line 4. 2B, future levy projections, line 4. The minutes state Mrs. Middlestetter explained that traditionally the city and the schools have not had levies on the same ballot. At minute 33:20, Elaine actually said this has always been a guideline that we cooperate and alternate our levies. And then Nick followed that up with, we have always taken the position that we don't want to compete for taxpayer dollars with the schools. Now, these next two, they're really in the context of some confusion that was created during the meeting, and what the mayor and Mr. Edwards and Melissa accomplished on Saturday with regard to changing the meeting to city goals instead of Melissa's goals. That specifically during the meeting, the mayor referred to the information. He said the information was sent out on a Saturday that explained city goals versus Melissa's goals. That was not clear. I got an email from Melissa that said, we're going to use these for Monday's meeting. And nowhere could I, in the email that was sent, was it explained that we changed the purpose of the meeting, nor was it stated the city goals versus Melissa's goals. And I truly believe that the mayor thinks that that was sent out, but it wasn't sent that way. And it did cause me, at least me, confusion, because as I understood it, Melissa has been asking for us, council, for goals several times throughout the year, so she can do her job and do it as best as she can. And I personally was confused as to why our city manager would ask us multiple times for goals, and then we would set a meeting right before her review to establish her goals for next year. And then all of a sudden we just changed that completely to city goals. And then starting the meeting, I didn't understand that. So based on that explanation, I think that it should reflect in the minutes somewhere that I'd like it stated in those that this meeting, that notes on this meeting that a document that explains city goals versus Melissa's goals was not sent out as the mayor thought, or at least not received by me.
We'll note in the minutes what was sent out. I don't think we can go back and recreate history.
That's fine. I just, as someone reads the minutes, they have no comprehension that what you meant to say or had wanted the rest of council to know, that they didn't know, or that it didn't get communicated. And then lastly, I think that it's important that we have, even if it's a last minute, an updated agenda sent out that includes all the documents. In this case, when that document was referred to in the minutes, I went scrambling through my email to find, and I wrote down notes of what the mayor had called it, and I couldn't find that document. I did find a document, and I finally figured it out, but it was a few minutes in that conversational meeting that I had to spend trying to understand what was meant. And I know it doesn't happen often, but sometimes we end up starting a meeting with several documents that are sent by email but not included in the agenda. And I think that would be not only important for the councilman, but also important for the city to be able to know what we're talking about when they look at the video or the minutes. And lastly, I take this serious because I've already been called out by someone last February in a council meeting because they read the minutes, and the minutes clearly said something that I didn't say. And she was very upset, and we had to go back and look at the video to explain, hey, I didn't say that. I was explaining that someone else had said that. And then Nick brought up in our last meeting that we really don't have to detail the minutes as good as we do. And I think that has a a positive and a negative. When we start paraphrasing what people say in a legal document that we don't necessarily have to, I think that might be extra work for more confusion than good. And it might be able to save effort on Pam's part as well, and dollars for the city. But in our previous second half of this meeting, that whole discussion occurred where Nick and Elaine both brought that up. And I also said, maybe we don't need to do that. That conversation was not in the minutes at all. And so that would be for the follow-up meeting.
January 25th.
Yeah. And I do think that's a good topic to discuss. I'm not sure that we should go to the level we do. Not that I don't appreciate it, but I definitely think that we need to be careful when we put things in writing and call it a record or refer to it as a record. That's all. Thank you.
Pam, I think we probably have to go back and look at the tape for the January the 18th session for those items he noted. On the January 25th, if we want to talk about, if there's any discussion that we want to possibly reduce the volume of the minutes, I'm fine with that if we include that in there. You know, do whatever we feel most comfortable with, whatever makes the most sense. I want the minutes to be good, but by all intentions, I mean, the minutes are not a verbatim. We don't do a transcript. We do have the YouTube video out there saved indefinitely, which should be the go-to thing if we need to go back and resurrect what was actually said. So that being the case, it sounds like we're going to table the approval of the minutes of both the 18th and also the 25th. Does anybody disagree?
Were there questions on the 25th meeting or just the work session?
You made comments that you guys discussed what should be in the content of the minutes.
Was that, I thought the minutes we were discussing right now were the minutes of the work session.
So the work session was two different meetings.
I'm sorry.
The work session was two different meetings.
He made a comment about most of the comments were on the January the 18th session. Then the last comment regarded the January 25th meeting.
Okay, I thought we were just talking about the 18th.
Is that correct, Ernie?
Yes, yeah. There was one comment on the work session on the 25th.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I normally would have just sent these to Pam and asked for some corrections. But on the 25th, council concluded that they wanted to talk about them publicly. So.
Okay, let's go ahead and table the approval of the minutes of January the 18th and also January 25th. Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds like it. Elaine, do you have something to say or?
No, I just said yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks. All righty, moving on down the agenda. Before we get to our special guest, Ryan Paisley, we do have a proclamation. Which I will read as follows. From the Office of the Mayor, Bellbrook, Ohio. Proclamation, Black African American History Month, February 2021. Whereas the month of February has been designated as National Black African American History Month, in which we celebrate the vast contributions of Black African Americans to our nation's history and identity. And whereas Black African American History Month grew out of the establishment in 1926 of Negro History Week by Carter G. Woodson in the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And whereas the 2021 national theme for the observance is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. And whereas the city of Bellbrook is deeply committed to equity and inclusion, which includes the cultural and racial affirmation of our community members who identify as Black African Americans and the contributions they make to the fabric of our community. And whereas the city of Bellbrook strives to close the equity and outcome gaps for Black African American community members through policies and practices to ensure greater access and opportunity. And whereas the city of Bellbrook recognizes the value of diversity and the importance of celebrating and promoting it within our community. Now, therefore, I, Michael W. Schweller, as mayor of the city of Bellbrook, do hereby proclaim February 2021 as Black African American History Month and encourage all residents to honor Black American history and culture and take this opportunity to continue to recognize and celebrate the contributions of Black Americans in our everyday lives. And I will sign and date this, and this will become part of our record of tonight's meeting. Any comments from anyone in council? Thank you. Next up, we have the Service Department Annual Report, and with us tonight, we have Service Director Ryan Paisley. And Ryan,
Thanks,
the
Mayor.
mic and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for
So
being
this
here.
is my third year doing this, and I ask if you guys want to see more or less of any of this information or any questions during it, please let me know. But we can go through this pretty quick, and you guys can stop me and ask questions. So first of all, our water production, we had 300 million gallons pumped, and we only lost 7.66%, which I believe last year was 14%. And that's based off of how we flush hydrants, essentially. So there's times where we flush hydrants, and there's times where we flush water main. So last year we really flushed the water main. It gets rid of all that nasty iron and stuff that just lays in the pipe. I was impressed at a 7.66. That's pretty good, honestly. The EPA thinks that anything above 20%, then you have a problem. So I don't think we've ever been anywhere close to that, but we actually billed 277 million gallons last year, which I thought was cool. But anyway, next slide, please. If you guys have any questions, please ask. So snow removal last year, you can see was pretty mild. It was about half of what the previous year was. We didn't use a whole lot of salt, which is good because it was $87 a ton last year, and it's only $44.55 this year. So we're saving about half on the salt. But those are just the stats. We try to keep stats on everything we do. It's kind of neat to go back and look and compare years. So that's really all I have on snow removal. Water system repair. So 2 years ago, I asked council to, I asked for $30,000 a year to replace fire hydrants because we had never done that before. Well, with the pandemic last year, I had 13 hydrants sitting on our lot, just waiting to be put in the ground. And we only got 4 of them in the ground as far as replacements. But, we have had some that, cars hit and, we repair those, all that kind of thing. The water main breaks we have, that's right on track of about average. And we've had about 5 this season so far. I'm sure we're going to have more, especially with the real cold coming up here this week, starting tonight. But yeah, I mean, so I do want to get back on track with replacing hydrants. That was one of the first kind of things that we eliminated from a goal, I guess you could say, not knowing when we were back to work full time and all that kind of thing. But, we still kept up on everything we needed to do as far as anything the water system repairs, maintenance and repairs needed. So, okay, so our major projects, obviously, North Bellevue Culvert, that was the big one. I'm glad we took our time and we did it right. And we got the funding, which was outstanding. The Beechwood Culvert relining, you can see a little picture I have over here. That's the finished product. The bottom of that was all rusted open and it was just nasty. I didn't have a lot of room to put more pictures on here, or I would have, but we have the northwest sidewalk. That's a huge improvement. I have listed, with the exception of the little part of Possum Run, all the streets that were milled and paved, which came in under budget, which is always a good thing. So our work orders, we have work orders for anything we do. We try to keep track of what we do, who did it. And these are the numbers. So, every day we get it could be 2 one day and 20 the next day on oops requests is what we call them, but it's really for us to locate stormwater and our water system for any kind of thing anyone's doing. You see the blue flags out there. We try to mark everything. Thankfully, I don't know of any time we mismarked something and someone dug through it. So all the guys know how to do it, and we do it every day. Water service requests, you can see how many we do there. Those are shutoffs, turn-ons, final reads, meter pit inspections, all that kind of thing. And then just everyday general work orders, which can range from checking, pedestrian lights, on the crosswalks. We check those once a week. We do vehicle checks every week. I mean, there's things we do repetitive and, just to stay on top of things. So those are those numbers. Okay, so we got CARES Act money, and we tried to use it the best we could for the guidelines that the CDC puts out there. Anything touchless we tried to install, and we installed most of this. We did have to have some electrical upgrades, but our crews installed most of this. The touchless hand dryers, the touchless soap dispensers, all that kind of thing. We had a company come in and make the library front door an automatic door, and the municipal building main entrance, and then the door upstairs that goes back, by the council chambers that goes down the main hallway. We had all that installed. It was kind of overwhelming because we had deadlines, and then those deadlines got extended, and then so you're trying to get things done and caught up, and then it got extended, but we still made it happen, and we're pretty proud of what we did there. So during the stay-at-home order, so what we did is first of all of our guys are always on call. So there would be 3 of us in here every day. It would be a different 3 the next. I was here every day, but it would be a different 2 people the next day, unless we had something come up to where, if we had potholes to do or whatever, then we would schedule the time. We still take our temperatures every morning. We wear masks when we're not socially distanced. We spray, we wipe down doorknobs, faucets. We do that, several times a week. And we have a fogger that we use inside of our vehicles to, fog down the steering wheel with sanitizer. It's kind of strange thinking back. This wouldn't even be on my report, but these are just things that it's affected all of us, and thankfully the guys have come through it. They don't complain about it. It's just part of life at this point. We're going to continue to do it until we have to. And then this is our staff. So I would like to point out, we hired, we were down a man for, 10.5 months last year. And, we didn't need to hire just because of really the pandemic. We didn't know where we were going. But we did hire a guy. He came from Greene County Sanitation. He worked with them for almost three years. And honestly, he does what we do, which is kind of strange. It's like the only thing we're teaching him is snow removal. He's already got his CDL. He's already worked 3 of our water main breaks this year. It's just like he fit right in. It's like I don't know. It's a godsend that he came, and we're happy to have him. But this is our crew right here. So, and we're pretty proud to be here. And that's really all I got. We do appreciate your support, and thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I just had one quick comment or question, actually, and then a comment, but have we given any thought to putting some sort of railing on the North Bellevue culvert?
So we actually, so the reason that there was a guardrail there before is because there was not enough berm. So when LJB designed this, they made it to where we didn't, I guess, we didn't need it as far as a safety concern. There's enough room to, I mean, we could always put it in, but it's not needed. And that was a discussion that happened early on. I think it actually cost a little more money to do it the way we did, but by extending this out, another thought is if there was ever sidewalk put in, there would already be enough room for sidewalk. So it eliminated the guardrail and it made enough room for a sidewalk. So that's kind of why we went with it this way. But as far as the safety of it, it's not required per ODOT spec.
My only concern was I went through it one time this fall and there was a lot of leaves on the bridge. And I don't think you could easily see where the edge of it was until you got pretty close to it. And I thought it may be worthwhile to have some sort of railing on the side of the bridge so people don't just walk over, because it's a pretty deep drop into the water there. And then there's a lot of, pretty sharp rock. It's just something I would ask you might think about, and maybe we'll see if we could add something to it.
Yeah, we could always do that. And then over on Plantation Trail, it's kind of the same way. We had that culvert replaced in 2017, I think. It's kind of the same thing. And kids playing, you could put guardrail up, kids are still going to play. I mean, we can certainly look into that.
It'd be worthwhile looking into. I don't know if I want to get into a big spend, but if that's something we could do relatively cheap with some ornamental iron or something like that. I mean, that's all I'm asking for.
Sure.
Other than that, I want to personally thank you and your department for what you do for Bellbrook. I think you guys have a great work ethic, and I think you're very responsive. I think probably snow removal and water main breaks are probably only two examples of what you guys do a great job of. But both of those events occur at probably the most inopportune moments. And, our life in Bellbrook goes on without missing a beat. And I certainly appreciate what you and your team do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council?
I just have a question.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Has anything been discovered that is safer to use than salt to melt, for snow? Because salt is so corrosive, not only to the vehicles, but to the pavement. My brand new cement driveway looks like it had chicken pox because it's got so many pit marks in it. So I don't know if there's anything that is safe to use and still doesn't damage the environment like salt does.
Okay, so for your driveway, you can get ice melt, which is different than salt. I would not put salt on my concrete driveway.
The salt comes from your trucks, not from what we put down.
Okay, so there's really only pre-treatment, which could be beet juice or a salt. It's a 23% salt solution. That's the white lines you see before a storm. That's what they're putting down. It's still salt. I mean, for anything, I don't know of anything that would be even remotely cost efficient to de-ice or a street. I don't know of anything.
Yeah, I was just wondering if any new thing you had heard of anything new. I hadn't seen anything myself, but sometimes you guys find out about it before we do.
No, I'm sure if there was something out there, I'd be getting pamphlets and phone calls. I haven't heard of anything yet.
Well, you can use urea, but that's really expensive. I'd just like to thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate these briefings. Feel free to put all you want in them. As far as I'm concerned, I eat this stuff up. So thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Great report.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ernie. Thanks, Nick.
Ryan, thanks for joining us. Good report.
I had just two more just quick questions. Are there any forums or meetings or collaborations that you have with either EPA or Greene County or the state, or are there additional forums that you wish you had?
Not really. I mean, when things come up, we don't deal with Greene County so much, but like Sugar Creek Township, we bang ideas off each other. We have a good relationship with Greene County on the water side of it. I mean, as it comes, we don't have anything formal, but I have contacts and people contact me if they need to borrow equipment or things like that. So we do talk, but there's nothing really formal about it.
Okay. And then my other question was on staffing levels. How are you right now? And are there any retirements on the horizon?
So yeah, Jerry, he's been here 35 years. I think he said within 3 years, but he doesn't have a date yet. And then I would be next in line, which is about, 10 years from now, up to 10 years. I don't think I'm going to work longer than 10 years. But I mean, really, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. And I too enjoy and appreciate the presentation as an engineer. Go
Cool,
technical
thanks.
as you want.
Anything else, Ryan? Ryan, let's have a safe night tonight and hope we don't get the snowfall they're talking about.
Yeah, we're looking for it.
Okay, good luck. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We have no public hearings and we have no introductions, but we do have 2 resolutions. First resolution is Resolution 2021-E. Can we have a volunteer to read that resolution, please?
Sure, I will, Mayor. 2021-E, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Dave. Yes.
All right. This is the City of Bellbrook Resolution number 2021-E, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Sable Ridge Owners Association for gate maintenance. Whereas on February 24th, 2000, Ordinance 2000-1 approved a major change to the Sable Ridge subdivision. And whereas among the changes to the plan for the development included the construction of a gate dividing Kensington Drive and the Sable Ridge subdivision. And whereas upon adoption of the major change to the subdivision, the ownership and maintenance of the gate was not recorded on the record plan. And whereas the City of Bellbrook wishes to maintain ownership of the gate with the Sable Ridge Owners Association accepting responsibility for maintenance and repair of the gate. And whereas both parties have agreed to outline the terms of the agreement for clear understanding of responsibility of the gate from this day forward. Now, therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby resolves that Section 1, the Bellbrook City Council hereby authorizes the city manager to act as a signatory on their behalf and enter an agreement with the Sable Ridge Owners Association for gate maintenance. Section 2, that this resolution shall take effect and be in forthwith. And that's the resolution. And Pam, I just say, did I misread Section 1? Is there a word missing? Enter into agreement.
Yes, it should be enter into an agreement. Yes, there's a typo there.
So that's the resolution, Mayor.
Okay, so I am going to frame this up. If council would like to have further deliberations related to this agreement, that is totally fine. Just to give a little bit of history on top of what was already stated in the resolution, when the subdivision plan had changed back in 2000, the gate was going to be put in, and the gate has been in place for several years, and currently the city checks it every Monday and makes sure that it's operable. And if the gate is found to be inoperable because of some sort of an issue, it could be with electric or anything really, then what we had been doing is leaving the gate set open. And that is for emergency access if the gate is inoperable. So with that being said, there was an issue with the gate, and while we were trying to figure out what was wrong with it, it was left in the open position. It was left in the open position for quite a while, which started these conversations because we had received an estimate once we figured out what was wrong with it. And it was a pretty costly repair. And so this notion of whose responsibility is it to fix this gate was not known at all, because normally a subdivision plan will have common items specifically called out. Like a lot of subdivisions have signage at the gateway that has the subdivision's name on it. Those things are maintained and owned by the homeowners associations and are put on the plan in that way. Same thing with some of the ponds that are part of the development, and other common areas are typically always spelled out in terms of ownership and maintenance. The gate was somehow missed. So I worked with our attorney, and our municipal attorney, drafted the agreement that is attached, and the Sable Ridge Owners Association have reviewed it. We've been taking this back and forth for, I think, 8 months was when this started. And so everyone is in agreement that this is something that we are okay with entering into. So what this license agreement does is the city maintains ownership of the gate, but the Sable Ridge Owners Association will maintain it. The city has paid the electric bill on it for as long as it's been in existence. And so we agreed to just go ahead and continue that, since it's very minor. We will continue to check it. We will continue to use it for emergency access. But if there is an issue with the operation of the gate, then the Sable Ridge Owners Association would be the ones responsible for that. So the city does reserve the right in this agreement that if we ever decided that we would need to remove the gate for some reason, that we would have that option. There are either parties able to terminate this agreement, and that's spelled out in here. So I wanted this to be in front of council for consideration as a solution to the gate and who's supposed to maintain it, since it was never fully spelled out. And since everyone, including the Sable Ridge Owners Association and then myself and staff are good with this, then we would like for council to consider entering into this. And we do have Glenn Costi here, and he is part of the Sable Ridge Owners Association. And he is somebody that I communicated with back and forth quite a bit throughout all of this. So he has a lot of background information on this as well. And he can kind of speak from the Sable Ridge Owners Association perspective as well.
Yes, so thanks, Melissa. That was a great summary. It was quite the history lesson, learning about the history of the gate and why it was installed. And I think the last time it broke down was during one of the hurricanes that we had several years ago. And at that point, the city, I think, just out of the goodness of their heart, went ahead and fixed it. And it wasn't until this latest repair came about, and it's such a costly repair, that it threw up some red flags. So kind of the good news out of the bad news is we were able to come to a closure on who's responsible for what. We are in a pretty good position capital wise, so we feel like we can take on this responsibility. And as part of the association, I get shoulder tapped a lot in the street when I walk in the neighborhood, and folks are really anxious to get the gate closed. It currently is open. We're ready to begin repairs on whatever it takes to get the power back on. And I think it's a good way to close the loop on what didn't happen during the original development approval. And I think it's a win-win for everybody. So thank you.
Melissa, do we get a lot of feedback on the gate? I know the people in Sable Ridge, I think some like it, some don't like it. I'm thinking Kensington, I thought there was a few households that liked it closed versus being open. Have we had a lot of calls, or maybe Glenn, do you feel a lot of calls from the neighbors? It sounds like you do get some interest in it.
In our side of it, it's about through traffic, people coming through our neighborhood, excessive speeds. So there's certainly been an uptick in that traffic since the gate's been open. I know Melissa forwarded to me a couple of homeowners from the Kensington side. One was concerned about the travel distance around the neighborhood when that one road was blocked because of the culvert or whatever that failed, that bridge that failed over there. Yeah, so there was folks that talked about that, and then there was one, I think, homeowner who said they wished that they liked the dead end street effect of the gate, and that's what they really liked about the house when they bought it. So I thought it was pretty mild, unless Melissa, you've gotten some more comments, but I think it was just two homeowners that really talked about it when it first broke down.
So
Thanks,
I'll say
Glenn.
that it's usually whenever there's a change, whenever the gate opens, then you get calls. And then whenever the gate closes, then you get calls. So whenever the gate does something that somebody doesn't like or is curious about, then they will ask about it. So I actually didn't even realize it was open right now. Just because it's not an area that, is really traveled. I mean, unless you live back there, just because it's so kind of deep in those neighborhoods from both access points. So I didn't even realize it was open right now. So usually anytime there's a change with the gate is the only time that we hear from anybody.
Glenn, can you tell me the purpose of the gate and why you would have control of it as far as, can you explain that?
I think during the, and Melissa helped me with this, but I think during the original approval of the development, there was a concern by the fire chief at that time that there needed to be two accesses to Sable Ridge. I guess at that time, Little Sugar Creek Road would flood, and the fire chief was concerned about access to the houses there to fight fires. So there was a requirement that there be a rear access to the development. And I think at that time, the Kensington Drive was a dead end. So the neighbors on Kensington side said, wait a minute, we don't want a through street. We bought this house because we like a dead end feature. So I think the compromise that the city approved was to put up a gate. So in fact, it would be a dead end street, except if the fire or police needed to come through into that neighborhood. And we do see, our police cruisers coming through, cycle through there and open up the gate. And certainly I see the Bellbrook maintenance guys with Ryan's guys coming through on a regular basis. And we appreciate that traffic. So I think it was a compromise to try to meet the needs of the fire chief as well as the Kensington neighborhood.
So that is, I think that the fire chief did have commentary, but there are in subdivision regulations, the length of the cul-de-sac. So the city's engineer had an issue with it because the length of the cul-de-sac was just way too long. So the recommendation was that it needed to have another access point versus one way in, one way out because of the length of the cul-de-sac. And so when that subdivision was built, it was terminated in the way that it was, with the understanding that if anything were to ever develop at the end of that terminus, then it would connect. So that didn't happen for many years. And as Glenn said, a lot of the people that lived at the end of Kensington there didn't like the idea of that opening back up again. So there was this kind of back and forth between the city's engineer said it's too long of a cul-de-sac, it's got to have another out, and the folks at Kensington and the developer wanting to build it as is, and the folks at Kensington wanting to maintain their dead end. So that was what the compromise was to put in the gate. So if somebody needed to get through, they could get through. Otherwise, it's going to act as a barrier and not a through street. So that's exactly right.
Any more discussion of council? I'm sorry, go ahead, Forrest.
Is there anything other than a gate, like signage could be placed? Would that be appropriate?
What would the purpose be, Forrest? I'm sorry, I'm not clear on that.
Well, we've established that it's a safety concern between fire and police, and you have several steps to get through the gate if you have to in an emergency. And if it doesn't work, then possibly have to run fire trucks or police through the gate. And I was thinking maybe just signage would work, and then you could alleviate a lot of costs.
People don't pay any attention to no through traffic. They barely pay attention to stop signs. So every time we build a subdivision, the same conversation comes up because the connecting plats don't get built right away. So people get used to having a dead end street like Possum Run. And they fuss and whine about it because now it's going to be open at both ends. But our subdivision rules say that we have to have two access and, 2 points of getting in and getting out. So that's what's come about. It's the same thing happened at Highview Terrace. They didn't want to connect to the landings. Possum Run, they didn't want to connect to Clio Road. So it's the same old thing. We don't want anybody else in our neighborhood except us. So I don't know how you fix it, but the needs of the community also have to be looked at, and especially the emergency. Because if Little Sugar Creek used to flood a lot, and it doesn't mean that it won't again. So there's no way in and out if Little Sugar Creek floods. So those are things that have to be seriously considered. But I hear this conversation every single time a new plat is built. So.
And it's just interesting that it really is just, there's been a shift in the way that developments are designed. And I'm pretty sure that anybody notices this if they just kind of pay attention to it. If you look at how the old village is laid out, everything's in a grid.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's an issue on a street, you've got 5 different ways that you can get around it.
Mm-hmm.
In current development, everybody wants to live on a cul-de-sac. So you have one road in, and then you have all these fingers off in these cul-de-sacs, and it's only people that live back there have access. So it's this change that's happened in the way that developments are laid out. I mean, it's just the modern way to do things, and it's not necessarily the best way to lay out a development, in all honesty. So
it's not community oriented for sure. I think if they could put gated communities up, they would do that.
If I may, with this one, I was just going to say, I think you've got a good compromise there, Melissa. The gate is there. It doesn't work. The city owns it. So I am perfectly happy with the folks who went in, wanted the gate in the first place, taking care of the maintenance. And I did hear you say that since the city owns it, should we decide in the future that a gate is not needed, not worth it, what have you, that the city can then take it down, take it apart. So for where we are today in that particular situation, this seems like a definite, reasonable way ahead.
And I would agree, Dr. Dave. Any more discussion of council?
Yeah, I've got 2 things to point out in the agreement. One, I think the numbers are off. I don't know, but you follow 1, 2, 3, and then starts the alphabet, and then it goes back to 1, which looks okay. Then 2 jumps back out, and 3 jumps out further. 3 was already taken previously. So we want to look at that. But if you look at 3 services provided, section B, 3rd line from the bottom, the word starts reasonable efforts. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that from a city liability standpoint. It says licensor, which is us, agrees to make reasonable efforts to protect licensee from interference or disturbance by third persons. I'd like to know what that means exactly. And then scrolling up where you talk about section 1 that's indented, the bolded heading is commercial general liability. We're asking that the Sable Ridge Homeowners Association take out an insurance policy, 1 million or 2 million aggregate. I would just want to make sure that that policy would cover if for some reason the fire department couldn't get through because of the gate, or because the gate wasn't working, or happened to have to bust through because the gate wasn't working, that our fire trucks would get repaired under that policy. Because I think it is, but I would just want to look at that policy, for us to take a second look at that policy and make sure our circumstances, in the event that that gate didn't work, that someone wouldn't come back and hold us liable for a house that burnt down, or a criminal that got away and then hurt somebody. Outside of that, I agree with Dr. Dave. Looks like a good way to proceed, and we've always gotten out the way it's written.
Any more discussion of council? Melissa, does it make sense to go back and look at that spacing and numbering? I think the numbers seem to kind of flow, but the spacing kind of makes it look a little bit awkward. I'm not sure if it's spaced out or what will happen to it, but it looks like in pages 2 and 3, there's a little bit of a variation.
Yeah, sometimes
think-
with formatting with multiple bullets like that, it can just, I mean, Pam knows when we are formatting code, sometimes it just has a mind of its own and you do your best, and sometimes you just don't catch all of the odd spacing and weird things that Word wants to automatically update for you. So that's not a problem.
Take a look at that, and then we'll look at the CGL policy.
Did we
Yeah, I
create
think it's
this
just the, on the numbering, I think it's just the use of numbers at 2 different levels, and it's not apparent that the numbers at one level aren't the same as numbers at another level. So it just needs to be switched up, like switch to capital Roman numerals or something.
Did we create this document, or did the attorney create it for us?
Our municipal attorney wrote this.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and table resolution 2021-E till we get it cleaned up a little bit, and we'll take it next time. Anybody disagree?
No, sounds good.
Makes sense.
Moving on, resolution 2021-F. If I could have a volunteer to read 2021-F, please.
I'm unmuted. Oh, ladies. No, Elaine, you have the honors. You're muted. There you go.
I just need to get it a little bit bigger. Even
No
with
problem.
glasses, my eyes aren't that good. Okay, City of Bellbrook, resolution number 2021-F. A resolution approving the amended agreement and bylaws of the Miami Valley Risk Management Association, known as MVRMA. Whereas the City of Bellbrook is a member of the Miami Valley Risk Management Association, MVRMA, and the agreement and bylaws was executed by each member city upon admission to the association and represents the contract between the pool and its members. Whereas the agreement and bylaws was adopted December 1, 1988, upon formation of the pool, and has been amended 5 times subsequently, most recently in 2002. And whereas the amendments require a recommendation by at least 2/3 of the Board of Trustees and an approving resolution approved by the governing bodies of at least 2/3 of the members. And whereas a committee appointed by the president reviewed the agreement and bylaws and recommended various revisions to the document, see Exhibit A. Now, therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby resolves that Section 1, that the city manager is hereby authorized to approve the amended agreement and bylaws of M. Verma and attached hereto. Section 2, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith. Back to you, Melissa.
Okay, so we did not attach the full bylaws just because they were so lengthy, and it's not something that we have the ability to change anyways. So 2/3 of the members have to pass this legislation in order for the bylaws to be approved. And so there is a memorandum, as I stated, from Tom Judy, who's the executive director of Maverma. And he kind of outlines the process. And then he also frames up the changes by saying that they fall into 2 categories. Actually, it's 3 categories. Improvements in wording, including grammatical changes. The second is clarification of the document's intent, and then substantive changes. And so what follows is a 2-page table which shows what articles were changed, and it showed what was current and what was proposed, and then any comments as well. And since it had not been updated since 2002, they found it necessary to go through, and a lot of the substantive changes that they made reflected the evolution of the pool. So that is what is before council this evening to hopefully support and approve.
Any discussion of council with regards to resolution 2021-F?
What I read made sense because I read through the chart, and it seemed to make perfect sense to update it in those ways, since that's how they operate today.
And it seems to me that Maverna's always been a good solution for the city.
Mm-hmm.
Any more discussion of council? Could I have a motion regarding resolution 2021-F?
I move that we accept, move to accept the resolution.
Thank you, Elaine. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, TJ.
A motion was made by Mrs. Middlestetter to adopt Resolution 2021-F, a resolution approving the amended agreement and bylaws of the Miami Valley Risk Management Association, Maverma, seconded by Mr. Hoke. Mrs. Middlestetter,
Yes.
Mr. Hoke,
Yes.
Mr. Havens,
Yes.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen,
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mayor Schwaller.
Yes. Thank you, Pam. We have no old business, nor do we have any new business, but we do have a city manager report.
Okay, so city manager report is not very lengthy this evening. So just hats off to Ryan and his team for the great work that they do day in and day out as he delivered his report tonight. Council goals. So work has already begun on council goals for the year, and I'm sure that the different committees will touch on this, but I've already met with community affairs and have been in communication with the service committee related to their goals. So we're off to a good start. Greene County Land Use Plan Perspectives 2040. Greene County Regional Planning is conducting a mapping and implementation strategy workshop for their 2040 future land use plan. So members of council, planning board, and BZA all should have received an invitation to participate. They can do so by downloading a packet that I believe Jessica sent out to everybody and working on that from home to add input. I know that Jessica and actually Pam and Michaela and I all were able to look at some of the maps and the land uses as it related to Bellbrook, which they did match up to our comprehensive plan. And we were able to give some feedback on the maps and give them feedback in the specific areas that they were seeking us to do so. So if you would like to be able to fill out a packet and you did not receive the email, just let me know and I can make sure that Jessica gets that out to you. So the next thing is our police department's administrative assistant position. Nicole Etchison, who has been with us, is leaving her position as of the end of February. This is really sad for us because she's been such a great asset to our police department. She is taking what she's calling her dream job. So nobody can be upset with her decision, even though we're going to miss her greatly. So we do have a posting out for our next administrative assistant. So the posting is on the homepage and all the information is all linked up there. So that's going to be going on here in the foreseeable future to find a replacement for Nicole. COVID update, Greene County Emergency Management has provided our fire department and our police department with an allotment of rapid tests for use by any of our employees. So any employees that are symptomatic are able to receive a test through our police or fire department. So we're really excited that we have our hands on those to be able to use. So it's a very limited amount, but we do have the opportunity to be able to utilize that tool here within the city for our employees, which is great. And then monthly board activity updates. This was talked about, I believe, at the last council meeting and is included in the packet, which Pam put together. And I think that she actually touches on as well. So that's it for me this evening.
Does anyone of council have any questions for the city manager?
Melissa, when you go to city manager training or updates or anything, mention gates. See if you get these gate things solved before they become problems.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, isn't it?
Any other comments or discussion of council? Thank you, Melissa. Moving on, committee reports. Service.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things to do with weather. If you have like a meter pit that may be shallow, possibly freezes, if it gets extreme temperatures, maybe let a little water run in the faucet, keep your lines from freezing. That might be the case in some of the older places. Most of the newer places are probably with the codes and everything placed where the way they should be. Down there, like where I live, that used to have a well outside. So when they installed the water lines, maybe they're not as deep as they should be. The other thing Ryan asked is the snow like we may have tonight. If you can, park your car off the street, and especially if you have cars on each side of the street, could keep a snow plow from being able to get through. Pay attention to that, please. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Forrest. Safety.
Nothing specific from fire or police. Just wanted to reinforce, please be on the lookout for fraudulent unemployment claims in your name. We've seen continued occurrence on crime reports, as also I've experienced it personally. So just be on the lookout. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, TJ. Finance and audit, Nick.
Nothing for finance and audit tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Community affairs.
Nothing current, other than we have the RFP that we looked at and approved for Melissa to send out.
Thanks, Elaine. Pam, clerk update.
All right, so Melissa mentioned the board updates that I'll be providing monthly. So we have the January board update included this time. All three of our main boards met. And so we have the topics they covered. The planning board met on the 21st of January, and they did approve Article 14. They've been working on that since October. So they approved it. It's now with the attorney. And since it's very long and there were a lot of changes, I have no estimate on when we might be seeing that coming back. So it'll probably be some time on that one. But then the BZA PRC met. They didn't have any cases to hear this time, but they did ask, especially when it's kind of a low season for permits and variance requests. It was offered up that they would help review our property maintenance code. So that was their first run through of it. And they definitely jumped right in. So we'll be continuing with that. And then I do know of at least one case that they'll be hearing in February. The VRB met the beginning of January. They did hear a case for a sign just next door, the brick building, for the Bell House, which is at 9 East Franklin, and it was approved. And I think the sign is up. Is it? It's right next door. I'm not sure. I think the sign was supposed to go up really soon. So really pretty sign if next time you're driving by. Let's see. And I do know the VRB did not have any cases, so they did not meet or not meeting in February, but Planning Board and BZA will both be meeting next week. Future items coming up at our next meeting. We will have a work session, and it's going to be the CIC follow-up discussion, since that really hasn't gotten a lot of talk time yet. The police department will provide their annual report, so we will hear from the chief. And depending on code items that are with the attorney's office, may or may not have some code for you coming up to see. So that's all I know.
Thanks, Pam. Let's go to open discussion of council. Start with Councilman Greenwood, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank Nicole Etchison for all of her hard work, kind of in the background. You know, you don't really see those positions, but those positions are part of what makes the city work. And I wish her a lot of luck in her new job. And I'm just happy that she found her dream job. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Havens.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question for you, Pam. What is the Bell House?
So the building next door that we have they're like a brow place that just went in. It's just by appointment only. And then there's the barber shop on the other side. There's stairs in the center, and there's a beautiful upstairs room. The previous owner of that building did a lot of work, and one of the things they did was made this big room, and at one point it was a Pilates studio, I know. So what they've done, Bella Hart, who owns the building, thought that'd be a perfect event space. So it's something that a space that can be rented for small gatherings and things like that. So that's what that is.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Thank you. So just a couple quick things, just in conversations throughout the last couple weeks. I know that the schools and the parks declined the quarterly meetings, but I was wondering if we could go ahead and just kind of lead the way by calling a meeting. I know the township would be interested in meeting with us, and go ahead and invite the parks and the schools. And if they decline, then at least we're moving forward. just wanted to throw that out there for consideration.
We're actually going to meet the week of March 22nd.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you, Melissa. Are they still declining, the other two organizations?
Everybody's meeting.
Oh, awesome. That's great to hear. We have a park commissioner's spot opening up, and need to basically let everybody know that your resume or application for that is, you can find a spot to apply for that on the parks website. Last year we kind of advertised with that for that. And so I'd ask that we could do that again through the city website. And this next position could be someone from the city or the township. And then lastly, just wanted to bring this up for council's consideration. I know that we've had some challenges with the trail along Little Sugar Creek from, say, Dott's parking lot to McGee Park. Spoke with some folks at the parks, including a commissioner, and they kind of showed some interest in maybe making that happen for us. And so rather than us maybe having Clemens deed that property to the city, I was wondering if we could consider maybe facilitating that deed to go straight to the parks with an agreement that that they would make the trail happen for us, and it could connect right to the crosswalk, one of the crosswalks that we're working on down there for the coming years. So I thought that might be a good way to sidestep and still get us a pathway back to McGee, especially now that McGee is more than doubling in size with the addition of Edna May's property. And then that would also get connectivity to two additional communities that are certainly currently kind of isolated. That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
May I quickly, Ernie, you said the park was increasing in size. Can you explain that a bit for those of us that haven't heard that? Sure.
So one of the things that the Parks District is really good at is getting grants for money to acquire land. I think the last I counted, they were up to like 680 some acres. They got another grant and was able to get that property just north, I believe, of McGee Park, and includes a house and a garage and a barn. And so the planning stages are still ongoing, but definitely that's a lot of land to add to McGee Park. So kind of exciting for the community to be able to have an additional space there.
What does Edna May think of that?
I don't know. They asked her.
Sorry, I had to ask.
What do you think she thinks?
Well, as long as we don't increase the speed limit on Little Sugar Creek, she's probably okay.
Well, we'll make sure that doesn't happen.
And I'd recommend keeping the little red barn.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that would be a topic for a future discussion or working meeting, but my thought was if we could make something like that happen for the city and not have to do much work in wrestling that for the residents and increasing that connectivity, I thought it would be something worth pursuing.
I would concur.
Is that it?
And my thought is that it sounds to me a workable idea, but we need to, I think we would have to figure out what we're going to do about Little Sugar Creek Road improvement before anybody puts any effort into a walkway.
I would agree.
Otherwise, could all be undone.
This would be on the other side of the creek, away from
Yeah.
Little Sugar Creek.
This path already exists. It's like a horse trail right now. And it would just be bringing it up to snuff to where people could walk on it a little easier.
Are you talking about the east side of the
Yes,
creek?
yes.
That goes, okay.
That goes all.
It goes through the development. The
No,
edge of the development.
it stays. There's another path that stays along the creek that goes right on up to McGee. And then I don't know if you guys know it or not, but the parks is putting in a swinging wooden bridge in Morris Reserve, like a cable bridge. So the possibility exists that we could get a cable bridge there, or possibly large stones that you could step across the stream, like said Sugar Creek Reserve. They had all kinds of ideas of how they could make it happen. And they want to connect McGee Park to Edna May's property, and that there's a little portion of the stream on Possum Run that's in that property that could be transferred or should be transferred to city, that would help the parks connect those two parks as well. So I think it's a win-win based on some just generic conversations that TJ and I had, and I just wanted to kind of see if we could hand it off to the city and be able to wipe our hands of it and make it happen. That's my thought.
Yeah, whatever we do back there, we got to be very cautious of the stream. I think we're going to end up owning both sides of it. We got to be very careful what we ask for, but we're certainly looking at it. We've looked at it for a while. Anything else, Ernie? Or
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hoke.
Nothing specific for the city, but I kind of want to just dovetail what Mr. Mayor stated with the proclamation for Black African American History Month. I want to commend you for the proclamation, and I always take an opportunity. It's kind of like a passion of mine to cite certain historical figures, and I just wanted to highlight a Medal of Honor recipient from World War II, Staff Sergeant Edward Carter Jr. He was awarded the Medal of Honor in World War II posthumously. I won't go through the full citation. I'll just take a brief moment. But just to understand what he went through, he first saw military action at the age of 15. His parents were missionaries in China, and he joined a Chinese military at 15. That didn't last long. They booted him out when they found out he was 15. After that, he actually joined the Spanish Civil War as a socialist Abraham Lincoln Brigade, only to ultimately end up back in the United States. Found himself in World War II. He spoke at least 4 languages, and briefly he survived significant wounds, and he captured German military. He relied on his knowledge of the German language to gain valuable intel and securing a success of his mission. If you ever want to do some history lesson, there were a group of African-American soldiers from World War II that are awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously in 1996. So I strongly recommend looking up the history of those. It's fascinating what they went through. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, TJ.
Thanks, TJ.
Elaine Middlestetter.
I don't have anything for this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Van Veldhuizen.
I just want to say thanks to Ernie talking to the park. Man, it makes a lot of sense to partner up, and that is a beautiful area. I like the red barn. I would hope that would stay in anything. And I guess the only other thing I've been stewing on, Mayor, and not stewing, but I've never in my years here with the city, we've been talking about the minutes and how to do them. And Ernie, you brought your corrections tonight. Usually those are fairly quick, and we've had some deliberation that we don't have to do that detail of the minutes. I guess I just asked Mayor if you and staff, I think that what I've seen of the way the city has taken minutes has been good from a historical reference, easy to search. Maybe YouTube takes it over, but I think if you, I don't want to say it, just if we're thinking of changing it, let's make the decision and move on. If we're happy to keep it the way it is, just as we come back for those, it would be nice to, here's the way we're going to do it, rather than leave that loose end and have that drag on for several more meetings. So I guess I was in a requirements meeting this morning. I don't mean to say it's a requirement. It just really seems like a loose end. There's been some talk, and rather than unamedly talk, if we're serious about it, fine, and if not, fine, but make that decision and move on. So I'll quit there tonight.
We'll do it. I'll talk with staff. I do know that a lot of times by the level of detail we do have in the minutes, it does make it easier for staff to go back and research a question or something that comes up, multiple years later on with the different city staff and different employees. So we'll see if we can't find a happy middle ground to be content with moving forward. Good comment. Deputy Mayor Edwards.
I don't have anything tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
And I have nothing for tonight other than, again, to thank Ryan and the service department. I think they do a wonderful job, and most of their work is mission critical to the operations of the city, and a lot of it is done, I think, while we're sleeping. So we appreciate what they're doing. I think they got a great work ethic, and they're very responsive. So thanks again for the report. Pam, do we have some folks in the audience? I believe we do. It looks like we have 2 people out there. At this time, open the meeting up to open discussion of the audience, public comments. We ask that you give us your name, address, and you're limited to 3 minutes of conversation.
And, oh, there.
How
You were
about
muted.
Okay, David Buckle, 126 Lower Hillside Drive, Bellbrook. I wanted to ask a question of the council. First off, I'm not here on behalf of anyone else. I'm not here on behalf of any business owners. I'm focused on the charter and the quality of governance in the community. And as you're all aware, and maybe some people in Bellbrook are, we have a city manager form of government. It's not a state statutory form of government, and it's a huge deal. My concerns are about the roles of some of the council members. They're not about the roles of any of the employees. And I want to make that perfectly clear. So this is not my comments should not reflect on the manager, the clerk, any of the department heads, or any of the hourly and salary employees that we have for the city. I'd like to know what the process is to air grievances if there's a grievance against a particular council member. And what is your policy when it comes to policing your own members if they're found to be in violation of the charter? And maybe you don't know, but if someone could find out and let me know, it would help me.
Yeah, David, we'll look into that. I mean, we have not had that situation before. I know that the Ohio has a pretty strong ethics committee, but we can certainly speak more with Steve McHugh on what our policy internally should be.
Okay, and I don't know if I know it puts council in an awkward position, but it sort of comes with the territory sometime. But if you have a member that's kind of hitting up against the guardrails, sometimes it's the other members that needs to pull them back in. I would also like to ask the manager if she would do us a favor, me a favor, and preserve any emails, text messages, voicemails, any notes in her possession, as well as possession of the zoning department and any city employees with what they've had between their offices and any council members, because I can see a realistic possibility of this going a little bit further than just the city of Bellbrook. So it's an inquiry about process tonight is what I'm talking about. I don't want to embarrass anybody, so I'm not going to use any names. And I don't care if I embarrass myself. That I'm very comfortable with. And I want to make sure that if this does move ahead, that no city resources, be it the manager, the clerk, city attorneys, anything is spent in time, money, or effort into assisting a council member, as this has to do with the person's individual responsibilities and not the responsibility of the community. And that's my comment. I used your ambulance service a few weeks ago, and they were wonderful. They took me to the hospital, and I think the guy was happy to get me out of the back of his ambulance to shut me up. Just, I told him all about the fire department and how it came about. So that's the extent of my comments tonight. If somebody could get back to me on that, I'd appreciate it. But I want to make sure that city employees know that if I had a gripe about them, they should know that I would gripe. This is not about any city employees.
Could we ask what in general terms the issue is?
It has to do with with obviously, I know you know this inside out and you live it, but with a manager, council form of government, just real briefly, as you know, council's delegated to setting policy and legislation and direction, and not day-to-day activities in terms of directing city employees and becoming involved in city issues. The manager obviously is hired to take care of those responsibilities. And I've seen city councils work both ways, and it is actually much better with a city manager than without a city manager. But that's it. And I don't want to go into more than that tonight. I just want to know the process, because I don't want to start a big, I don't want to start a riot. So I think it would start a riot, actually. So
I don't know. I mean, I've got to say, you come in, sir, and talking about council and violating charter and hitting the guardrails. I mean,
I'm not talking about council. I'm talking about a council member. And if a citizen or even a council member has a grievance on how a council member is performing and they think they're in violation of the charter, is there a process? And there may not be, because I think back to when I did this, and if someone asked me, I wouldn't have had an answer off the top of my head. But is there a process that this can be brought to you and reviewed somehow internally without becoming, without getting out of control? That's what I'm asking. But if you ask me if I have a bill of particulars, yeah, I wouldn't be coming to you if I didn't have some solid concerns and some documentation to back that up. I don't shoot from the hip. That's number one. Number two, am I going to sit here tonight and make accusations? Absolutely not. I just want to know if there's a process and a way of moving forward. I suspect that when you look at the charter and you put your heads together on this, that you're going to tell me that there is a process, that you'll figure something out. There's a process, but my question is not an everyday question you would get, and hopefully it's a question you would never get, but it's a question that's come up. And if my concerns are valid, I'd like to have them aired. And if they're not valid, then in all fairness to everybody else, they should be said they're not valid. It's not a witch hunt. And I've been sitting on stuff for over a year with people, and it's time. So I'll shut up. I shouldn't say anything more.
David, we'll look into that and we'll get back with you on that. And I'm glad that your medic run was successful. I hope you're doing well.
About that, the EMT was happy to get me out of the back of the ambulance. So
very good.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Pam, do you have anyone else out there? Looks like we have someone else.
They're not raising their hand to speak, so
Okay,
I'm guessing not.
okay. That being the case, at this point in time, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering the employment and compensation of a public employee.
I'll move.
Thank you, Elaine. Can I have a second?
No, second.
Thank you.
Was that Nick?
Yes.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Middlestetter to enter into executive session for the purpose of considering the employment and compensation of a public employee, and this was seconded by Mr. Edwards. Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
And Mayor Schwaller.
Yes. Pam, do we want to dial back in? It looks like we still have that Galaxy S20.
Yeah, so, well, you have to give me a minute because I have to make YouTube go down and then I can clear everyone out. So give me just a minute. I'll let you know when I've got that all taken care of.
So that means we can have a little break? Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
A
Why
minute?
don't we take 5 minutes? Why don't we
Okay.
take 5 minutes,
Let's
everybody?
take 5 minutes and come back at, what,
Okay.
8:43?
Okay.
Thanks.